living through the love winds. I'm living through the love winds. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are in the world. Welcome back to another episode of the Reconnect with Your Teenager podcast with yours truly, Emma G. If you are new to this platform, hello, greetings, kia ora, hola, wherever you are in the world. My name is Emma G, and I am a youth empowerment through songwriting coach, as well as a musician and entertainer. And my mission and vision is to save the world one song at a time, not just by singing songs like you just heard, but also by helping young people step into their power, build confidence, and find their voices through the art of songwriting. But that is just my approach to how I want to see youth development operate and work. That is just one methodology. There are so many unique, different, and exciting ventures that coaches all around the world are doing when it comes to tapping into Gen Z in a little bit of a different way. So every week I get to talk with specialists, coaches, therapists, counselors, psychologists, psychiatrists, you name it, about their unique approach to youth development. Today I am joined by none other than Kevin Turner, all the way from Texas, who does a whole host of empowerment work, not just for young people, but also young people who are struggling to become the adult selves, the best adult selves that they can be, because he does a lot of work in the prison system as well. So welcome, Kevin. Thank you so much for being here. Please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Emma. It's so great to be here, connecting with you and those that are listening in. Here in the great state of Texas, it's usually 80, 90 degrees this time of year, but it's in the 60s and 70s, so it's a little cool for the Texas people here.
The cool conversations, eh? Yeah.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. I have a heart for serving the youth. That's my passion. It's where I actually began my work in the field more than 30 years ago. And to this day, the youth are our future leaders. And so helping them come along, navigate their path, fighting their way to endless possibilities. I love working with the youth. I still do some work in the prison, but the youth, they are my passion.
I feel you. I constantly tell people all the time when I was 5 years old, I announced to the world I wanted to be a rock star, a mother, a therapist. And I'm like, how am I going to do this? Oh, I'll just establish youth empowerment through songwriting coaching. Youth empowerment, youth work is such an important niche, and especially with teenagers. I'm curious to know what it is about youth work that really got you inspired to get involved in the first place.
I'm the youngest of four boys, and if you know anything about boys, 4 boys in one household, no sisters. We all were very, yes. We all were competitive, all were athletes, and I'm so much younger than them. As I began to come along, I really started struggling with self-identity. I was always, his little brother, or that's the last Turner. And coming into my teenage years, I really was kind of struggling with just knowing who I am, what's my purpose, what's next for me. And that really led me on a path of self-discovery towards self-identity, trying to figure out who I was, reclaiming myself. And that's when, after I shortly graduated from college, I started working in the juvenile detention center and a mental health day treatment facility. And that's where I really found the love of helping people, affirming people. I just didn't want the kids that I was serving to feel like I did. And that's where I really found my joy and realized, man, I enjoy helping other people win and seeing them grow.
That's awesome. I mean, one of my favorite quotes that I heard as I was doing my studies, years ago, was that every successful child is one caring adult away. And I think that's one of the things that's kind of like always kept me keeping on, because I hear you that that sense of or lack of self identity is so key. And you are somebody who does a lot of leadership development. You're also a personal growth coach, but I mean, I feel like those terms are sort of thrown around willy nilly a lot. Like, what does that even mean? What is a leadership development coach, and especially when it comes to young people? Like, how does that pertain to helping our young people become their best selves?
Absolutely, especially in 2023, right? These youth, they're living in the fastest age for information. They can look up anything that they want to know. If they're looking for videos, information on cars, employment, I mean, you name it, they have it at their fingertips. And so for me, leadership is coming alongside of them and helping them grow personally, finding out who they are a lot earlier in life, trying to figure out where they want to go, what they want to accomplish, and how can they leave their mark on the world. And it begins with your fingerprints. Emma, you have something in your hand no one other person has walking this earth, and it's your fingerprints. And I think a lot of times our youth this age is moving so fast, they don't have an opportunity or enough opportunity spending time just trying to discover what it is exactly that they really want to do.
I love that. I love that. However, I want to put on my devil's advocate hat here for a
Yes.
minute, because you're speaking my language. I mean, one of my favorite books, The World's Greatest Salesman, talks about you are unique, which means that you're valuable, and unique, which means that you're rare, and there's value in all things rare. So therefore, you are the most valuable person in the world, just because you're you. But you say that, what's a part of what you do is very focused on helping a young person figure out who they are and figure out how they fit in the world. Now, you've been doing this line of work for 30 years, which I'm going to then fathom to guess you didn't start when you were 12. So you might be Generation Generation X, which means that I think a lot of Generation X typical people and baby boomers and so forth will look at this generation and go, but they're young. They don't know anything. Like, who are you to tell them that they can become something when they're too young and dumb to know? How do you navigate that space? Because, I'm sure as a coach or as a leadership developer, you are somebody who gets that messaging all the time, and it's just exacerbated for our young people.
Yeah.
So how do you navigate that space?
I think it's important to help them navigate that as fast as they want to go, right? They're actually, especially in our school system, most youth that I come in contact with, they don't want to be managed. They want to be led. And so how do we lead them? By asking questions, and not only asking questions, but listening to the things that they are responding with, and helping them understand, did you really just understand what you shared? And let that marinate with them, and then continue to ask those questions, because at the end of the day, a lot of youth, they're a lot smarter than we give them credit for. They listen to all the adult conversations, right? They're listening to mom and dad possibly talk about bills, possibly talking about, I have to do the laundry, we need to get the yard done, we're getting ready to go on vacation. So they're listening to these conversations, and they're starting to understand what planning looks like, what budgeting might sound like. And I think it's important for us to involve them in those conversations sooner rather than later.
So I totally agree. But again, playing devil's advocate here, there's a lot of parents who are raising latchkey kids, who have the understanding. In a lot of ways, I hope the pandemic sort of shifted this way of parenting, or not shifted the way of parenting, but shifted our approach to what it means to be a parent. But I think there's a lot of people who feel as if they were raised by television, or raised by school, or raised by their babysitter, their nanny, their after-school care program. therefore they're not necessarily, the kids are not necessarily being exposed to budgeting, to healthy gender roles in the household, to how to file taxes, to how to change a freaking tire, things like that, we don't. I studied to be a mechanic for 3.5 years, but you know what I mean? Like, so how do you find that balance as a parent between the influence of our school system, the time commitment we have at work, and balancing that with rearing children? What does that look like, and how does that bring you in?
It's definitely a role, right? I mean, you look at parenting, there's really no manual. Me and my wife, I'm married in my yard, and we have two kids. They're grown men now, 32 and 28. And I remember as they were coming along in their preteen years, going into their teenage years, I didn't have a vision for my children. I kind of wanted them to cultivate, what they love, what they enjoy doing. But then I began understanding that once I started listening to them, I was able to lead them, and then I was able to leverage what they were becoming. And I think today, as parents, we're trying to provide for the family, working 30, 40, 50, 60 hours a week. Right. There's little time cultivated for sharing that vision with our children and allowing them to be a part of it. TV, phones, internet, they have access to everything. And if we bring them along and have them join us in the mission, in the vision for family, for life, cultivating their personal skills and growing personally, having dinners around the table. That's uncommon days when you're sitting at the dinner table and everyone has their phone, right? That's a no-no in our house.
Or they're glued to the television,
Right, or glued to the television. I just think that it's very important to stay connected by listening. I think my generation, when we were told to do something, we just did it. And this generation, they really want to engage in conversation and effective communication. When they're asking why, they really truly want to know. And I think for a lot of parents, maybe just slowing down a little bit, just a little bit, and being present when you answer their questions, and then follow up with the question and allow them to be part of the conversation.
I love that. I want to circle back. You mentioned about social media consumption and like the age of information technology, right? So, I mean, one of the things that I'm really passionate about is leadership. Leaders lead. We know this. And, attitude reflects that leadership. So if we're raising children who aren't paying attention and aren't respecting, then we may want to look at how we're teaching, raising, and educating. But when it comes to the likes of social media consumption, I think it's really easy for us to kind of try to combat that influence that it's having on our kids, as opposed to figuring out ways to maneuver and flow and incorporate those platforms into how we're teaching. For example, there's a lot of educational videos on TikTok now. There's a lot of information on how to, do your taxes and, a lot of financial management information. Now, I'm not saying that all of it is legitimate, but, how does that influence how you work with young people? Are you really focused, or even with your own kids, how are you, how do you incorporate that into what you do? Or do you?
I think the hands-on experience is phenomenal for this generation of youth. They love to hear it, but they want to be a part of it. They want to actually put their hands and actually have a hand in doing some of the work. whether
Mm.
it's problem solving, whether it's goal setting, doing taxes, whatever it is, they really want to be involved. And I think that for the majority of them, they learn best that way, by having an opportunity to participate and possibly fail. I think that's healthy for our young people. While they're
Mhm.
young, we can come alongside them and guide them and ask questions and be there for them when they have those questions, because failure is just learning. And I think it's important to allow them to have that opportunity to participate, and have hands-on experience early on. For me, earlier is the better.
I love that. I love that. I'm a huge fan. I can't remember who said this, but there was a really great college commencement speech which talks about the importance of failing forward. You know,
Mm,
you're
yeah,
gonna fall and you're gonna get back up, but make sure that
yeah,
when you fall, you're falling forwards, not
exactly.
into your success. Um, I love that. I love that so much. So tell me how, because your position is quite unique. You have been doing youth work for a long time. You've been a parent for a long time. Um, and you kind of, as Kevin Turner, have this, and I'm saying this because you kind of get this double vision in both the preventative parts of youth empowerment, but also the reactive results
Yeah.
of lack of youth empowerment because you work in the incarceration system. Now, I'm not here to dog on any parents of people who are incarcerated. That's not, and I'm not here to dog on people who are incarcerated either. We all know that there's a severe issue in this country when it comes to the prison system. But I'm really curious to know how those two roles interplay with each other.
Absolutely. And I also equate it to the school, prison, school, our youth, parents,
Mm.
prison and school, both are loud, both can be chaotic, and both environments have untapped people with potential and purpose. And so to have
I'm sorry. Say that again. Both places have people with untapped purpose
both
and
places are
promise.
loud, both places are chaotic, but both places have young people with untapped potential and untapped purpose.
Ah, sorry. I just wanted to hear you repeat that. I heard you. I just wanted you to repeat it. That was
Yes.
beautiful.
And so experiencing the best of for lack of better words, both worlds, when I'm connecting with the youth, I'm able to connect with them in a preventive maintenance way on choices and decisions. I've seen what poor choices can lead to, and so I utilize that to share stories, to share experiences, but also at the same time to cultivate the potential that I see inside of them to make right choices and better decisions.
I That's just such beautiful work.
Mhm.
That's such beautiful work and incredibly over. I mean, I've been in the education field for nearly 18 years. And one of the things that I have consistently seen is a lack of feeling heard
Mhm.
and a lack of feeling respected and validated.
Mhm.
And so for you to be able to do that kind of work is just I love that so much.
Yeah.
Can you walk us through like what that process might look like for you and when you're working with your clients?
Sure, absolutely. Most of the youth I work with, you just said a mouthful. I did a survey, and there was 30 youth, and the top answer was, I just want to be heard. I don't want to
Yeah.
be right. It may sound like I want to be right, but I just want to be heard. And
Mm.
so, having said that, I like taking walks in nature. I've recently started walking,
You're talking to
and
a New Zealander here. I'm all about nature.
yes.
Carry on.
And so if I have a client, just this past weekend, I'll use my grandson as an example. Um, Me and my wife, we kept him over the weekend, and he wanted to go outside. It rained most of the time here in Texas. And so he got his helmet, he got his bike, and I went walking and he was riding his bike. And that is how I love to interact with clients. For some reason out in nature, it's a healthy distraction, right?
Mm, mm,
You're calm, there's a peaceful, birds are flying, cars are going by, depending on where you're walking at, but it allows an opportunity to ask questions. Clients tend to be more vulnerable and open just because we're in nature
mm.
on a walk. And that allows me the opportunity to listen and really cultivate a deeper relationship with them because they're not boxed in. They don't feel
Trapped.
stressed out. They want to talk.
Yeah.
And so he was just riding his bicycle and we had a beautiful conversation for almost 52 minutes. And so that's something that I love to do because it seems to be a space where you're free, you're open, and some real work can be cultivated in those moments.
Again, you're speaking to my happy person because, growing up and, I grew up on the beach. I grew up in the woods. I grew up, really embracing that. I actually learned a few years back that there is a chemical that is activated in decomposing nature that works as a natural antidepressant. So I love that you're encompassing that, particularly because, I feel, especially in the year 2023, there is a significant need for a holistic approach to youth development. Right, the spiritual element, the physical, getting exercise, riding a bike, going for walks, the emotional, the social, and the mental. That stimulation of however that manifests for you. Like, as you're working through that process, what does that? How do you encompass that holistic approach to the youth development work that you're doing, both with young people and in the prison system?
It's a combination of everything you just expressed, but it's a method to the madness.
Of course, naturally.
I'm an acronym person, and so I love to use the acronym TIP, tip.
Okay.
And
To
one of the
ensure prompt service.
TIP, right?
What does your tip stand for? Tell me.
Yes, indeed.
And
usually that first couple of sessions is teamwork. We weren't born to live in isolation, so building that trust, getting them to understand, man, don't try to navigate these waters by yourself. Somebody somewhere is willing and able to connect with you and to help you. I still believe, even though the village may look different now, I still believe the village is the best community to continue to raise our youth, to develop our youth, to harness our youth. It may look a little different, but it takes more than one person to raise a child these days. It looks a little different. So certainly teamwork, and then being intentional. What are your and our objectives for the next 30 minutes, for the next 2 weeks, the next 3 weeks? And then performance, right? We have to take action and be able to measure that, evaluate that action, and we continue to move forward. And so that is one of the first things that I love to do. Building trust with the youth take time.
of course.
And they really just want to know, are you going to be there for me versus how much do you know? How much can you help me? They really just want to know, will you be there for me?
Yeah. Talking about the reflection aspect of performance, I think, at least in my experience as a vocal teacher as well as a coach, one of the things that I often, get ask of my clients is to self-analyze what they've done well before they go into, I mucked up on that, or I made a mistake there, or whatever. How do you, what's your approach to reflection that is, that kind of hits home for people? Because you're right, they want to hear, they want to feel heard, but they also often feel embarrassed or shame or tell me about that.
It just comes through reinforcement. I like to have 3 positives to a negative.
Oh,
That's self
snap.
that's self
Here I was thinking, I was like going crazy, like, because the kids I work with are like, I need 3 things that you did well before you do 3 things that you did badly, and they're like, huh, that's terrible. But
I mean
3 to 1,
the self-talk
brilliant.
is the self-talk, right? That self-talk, the voice in my head, the things that I say out loud. I'm looking for 3 positives before 1 negative, and it's a challenge. And we may even get a piece of paper. I challenge the parents: get a piece of paper. You can cut it in half. You can draw it in half it in a piece of paper and a pencil, and challenge your child to write down all the negatives they can think of. And then on the other side or right next to it, give them the same time limit and have them write down as many positives that they can think of. It's very difficult. You may think a lot of negative things, but when it comes to writing them down, putting them on paper, for some reason, it's very difficult to come up with more negatives than you have positives. So I'm
Of
looking for 3
course.
positives before we express 1 negative.
I love that so much. Brilliant.
Because it's
Brilliant.
in there, right? It's in there. And just like youth getting in trouble or someone being incarcerated, that's not a path most people want to go on and live. But when we reframe it, have that self-talk of positive affirmation, it's not just I know I can, I have the ability to do it. And then when you
Mm.
write it down, it's just something about writing it. You will come up with more positives than negatives.
I also find it's quite a fun challenge to I have this really un-PC saying of we take the bullshit, we turn it into
Mhm.
fertilizer, and we use it to plant a garden. I know it's very eloquent, but one of the things, I mean, what you're saying, what I'm hearing you say is,
Mhm.
not just the fact of, finding those 3 positive things and then, maybe counterbalance them with the 3 negative things, but even giving yourself an opportunity to look at those quote unquote negative things
Mhm.
and think, okay, how can I reframe this in a way that actually empowers me? For example, being a woman in the music industry,
Mhm.
being a woman of color in the music industry,
Right.
right? There are so many negative aspects to that apparently, but for me, I'm like, well, this is cool because I have, I can be a difference, I can be the exception, or I can sing louder and more aggressively and it's still considered ladylike. I don't know, whatever. Whatever it is, just giving that opportunity to cognitively reframe. When it comes to, and sorry, I keep like crossing between your youth work and your work in prisons. Do you find that there's much crossover in how both parties come up with their answers on positive and negative?
I do. I think a lot of it, especially in prison, my experience has been because I started working out with the youth and so young, at the detention center, they were 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14 years old. And when I made the jump to working in prison, um, incarcerated men and women, those are just little boys and little girls with unresolved issues.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I'm all for justice. If you've done something wrong, I believe in that. However, with so many people returning to our communities, it's important that we equip them. And so when I work with the youth, I just bounce back and forth between the adults and the youth, and it's unresolved issues, it's trauma. But the adults, they still have this little boy, this little girl that's still trapped, that hasn't been rescued yet.
Mm,
Where with the young people, they're wanting to be rescued before they actually
mm,
go that route. And
right.
so that's
That
why I
part.
love working with the youth in a preventive way, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
To not to share the horror stories, because it is horrific in there, but to share the stories of men that have come home, rehabilitated their lives. They have an opportunity to even come back and speak to some of the youth. I share those stories because it's inspiration. Not only that, it's affirmation for them to, ooh, I don't want to go there. However, if that story was productive, I can be productive, right? And so with our youth, 55% that have a mentor tend to not skip school.
Mm.
And so that's where that passion comes in for just connecting with them to help them make better choices and decisions as they move forward in their life.
You're gonna make me cry. This is beautiful work. No, I just,
Yeah.
so I mean, in my previous life, I taught at a tertiary institute that a lot of our students were second chance learners, had been incarcerated or
Mhm.
dropped, flunked high school and were told that they were never going to amount to anything. And it's always boggled me. Yes, I used the word boggled because I'm, I'm a little odd, but it always boggles me how we as a society are still, especially in the education system,
Right.
are still so obsessed with the reactive methodologies as opposed to the preventative. So being able to utilize, those reactive stories to help prevent is just
Right.
that's God's work. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That is beautiful.
I think it just adds a different element to the plan of return, right? You have a student who has possibly gotten in trouble, worst case scenario, suspended or expelled from school. Okay, well, what's the plan of return? And that's where I love partnering with the school, collaborating with educators and teachers to share in that chaos. Um, it's unfortunate. I do stay calm in those chaotic situations from my experiences.
You have
But
to.
COVID changed everything for our educators. They're stressed out. They're more mental health professionals than they are teachers. And working in such a high stressful environment for so long, I just see the opportunity to connect with the student, the teacher, and the parent. Because we're all one big community. I just think sometimes we get separated, but it takes all of us. It takes a village to impact and continue raising and developing our children because they are our future leaders.
Amen. Amen. Which leads us to your latest venture. You've just recently become an LLC, UnLimit-Ed, which I like that, unlimited, but unlimited education. Hey, LLC. You're doing one-on-one coaching, you do group coaching, you teach, you work with the educators as well as with the young people directly. How can people get in touch with you? Like, do you work remotely, or are you only based in Texas? You're only working with Texans, which
In person and virtual.
okay, cool.
In person and virtual.
Awesome.
And the website is almost finished. I can be reached on Instagram at Kevin Turner TV. That's KEVINTURNER TV. You can DM me. I'm very active in my social media on Instagram. That's the best platform for me right now, currently.
Right.
But yes, I love in person. I love interactive sessions, but also virtual as well. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome. Hey, thank you so much for your time. Your energy, and I tell people I'm all about that energy, and I think that Kevin Turner has just leveled my energy up today. So thank you. I appreciate you. But no, I sincerely, I really appreciate what you're doing for, people across the board of all ages. That preventative work, that reactive work, and just empowering the heck out of people is just, it's beautiful. And it's, if I may say so, it's really wonderful seeing it coming from a man. Because I feel like a lot of youth developers and a lot of educators and youth workers tend to be more white women, and that, no harm, that's beautiful, but it's just, we need that diversity in this space. So the fact that you're here doing the do is just, it's beautiful. So thank you so much. Kevin Turner TV on Instagram. You're also on LinkedIn. You're on Facebook. You're doing all the things. But UnLimit-Ed will be out soon. So watch this space. Keep in touch. Stay awesome. Special thanks to the iRant Network, of course, for hosting and doing all the production work behind the scenes. Montaigne, you are a lifesaver. And of course, thank you to all of my Patreon supporters and Emma G Nation for helping make this podcast possible. Until next time, friends, be good, be kind, stay safe, keep smiling, and don't let the world write your song.
Breaking in my headspace, I'm trying to get my feelings straight. I've overthought my mistakes, I turn one into one, so hard to stay sober. I'm damaged and I'm love stoned, so hard to remain in control. Rewriting what I thought I know, and I'm drinking it in, but the lesson ain't over. And I can almost pinpoint where we went wrong. I'm not about the sad songs, the foundation said I'm good to go. No matter what comes my way, I'll be smiling every step I take. I'm a legend, make no mistake, that I'm living proof that love wins. No matter what the future holds, I'm here and I'm not letting go. I'm a legend, baby, you should know that I'm living proof that love wins. Living proof that love wins. It's strange to who I used to be, but I'm not going down quietly. I know I create my destiny. When it's right as life, the evergreen knows it. I left behind the what if, I broke up with the negative. I'm flirting with abundance, and I'm drinking it in. My purpose is magic. I can almost pinpoint where my love began. I'm so glad that I know who I am, 'cause I'm the woman, I'm not the man. Whoa. No matter what comes my way, I'll be loving every step I take. I'm a legend, make no mistake, I'm living proof that love wins. No matter what the future holds, I'll be here and I'm not letting go. I'm a legend, baby, you should know, I'm living proof that love wins. I'm living proof that love wins. Hey! Ho! Hey! Ho! I'm living proof that love wins. I'm living proof that love wins. No matter what comes my way, I'll be dancing every step I take. I'm a legend, make no mistake, I'm living proof that love wins. No matter what the future holds, I'll be here and I'm not letting go. I'm a legend, baby, you should know that I'm living proof that love wins. I'm living proof that love wins. I'm living proof that love wins.